but you should not have looked in the day of your brother, in the day of his misfortune, nor should you have rejoiced over the people of Judah in their day of their destruction, nor should you have spoken proudly in the day of distress. So this is about the lack of compassion of Edom, seeing the destruction of Yerushalayim at the hands of Bavel. You should not have entered the gate of my people in the day of their calamity, nor should you have been among those who looked on their affliction in the day of their calamity, nor have laid hands on their substance in the day of their calamity. And I'll skip down to say, so, and what is the punishment then for Edom? But upon Har Zion shall be deliverance, and there shall be holiness, and the house of Yaakov shall possess their own possessions. So Yaakov has been destroyed, but Yaakov is going to come back, right? As we know, that's the prophetic promise of Tanakh. And the house of Yaakov shall be a fire, and the house of Yosef a flame, and the house of Esav stubble, right? Uhaya bet Yaakov esh, uvet Yosef lahava, uvet Esav lekash. Vidalku bahem, ve'achlum, ve'lo yihye, sarid levet Esav, ki Adonai diber. The house of Yaakov will be a fire, and the house of Yosef a flame, and the house of Esav will be straw, right? And they shall burn them and consume them, and none shall remain of the house of Esav, for Hashem has spoken it. So I think maybe the interesting suggestion here, maybe there's kind of a positive note to end on, as much as it may not sound like that. Fire burning through straw sounds like a bad thing, but I think there's an interesting idea maybe being suggested there, because obviously in one sense this is talking about the destruction of Edom, right? And Edom is no more. And it doesn't really matter how that happened. They got burned up, so to speak. But it's interesting because Yehuda and Yosef, it's not so clear that they are the reason Edom is going to be no more, right? But they're being talked about as though they're the fire that will ultimately consume Edom. And this is after this sacking of Yerushalayim that is being described, that Esav, showed no mercy for and showed no compassion for, or Edom did. And I think the point is, this can also be speaking about the more general issue of what we're talking about with the operating system and the software, right? That ultimately, if you think of Edom as, at least from some point coming from Esav in their history, they have some notion of a proper idea of monotheism. And we know, of course, that as things go down through the generations, it turns into all sorts of idolatry. So of course, Edom is going to have, other gods. But if we think of Edom as coming from Esav, because Esav is this pasuk we were just reading, it talks about Yaakov and Yosef and Judah and Esav. It's talking about the people, right? Going back to the beginning. What does it mean for Esav to be straw and for Yosef and Judah to be, is it Yosef and Judah or Yosef and Yaakov? And Yaakov to be a fire. It's the idea of a spreading, transforming influence, right? You put a flame in the straw, and at first it's something small, and then it spreads until it consumes and transforms the whole thing. It transforms it into a pile of ash, right? So we think of flame as being destructive. But in what way, actually, does Yaakov have the potential to be a flame that consumes Edom? If we think of Edom as Esav, really. It's about the fact that Esav can have the wrong software but the right operating system, right? But if you think of the role that the role that Am Yisrael are ultimately meant to play, if someone wants to affirm that Hashem is king and he created the world, we can say, great, good, we agree. And now the next step is for the contest of ideas to take place, where we see ultimately who is Hashem and who has the claims about who Hashem is that are ultimately going to win the day, right? And are ultimately going to be capable, perhaps even, of bringing about intellectual transformation in the house of Esau, right? This is, I think, the question that now has to be asked, because Am Yisrael, Edom is long gone. Am Yisrael are still around, and we still have our Torah from Moshe and from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we have a message about who Hashem is, not just that the world was created by one God who rules everything, but also many details about who he is and what he wants from humanity, and what he wants from, even more details, and mostly details about what he wants from Am Yisrael. And that presents us with a challenge and an opportunity to speak to the whole world and say, it's not enough to simply say, oh yeah, we agree with you that there's one God. There has to be agreement about the content of who Hashem is, and what he expects, and what he approves of, and what he disapproves of, and what he demands and commands, and what he ultimately will reward and bless, and what he ultimately will punish and bring to ruin.